Best of R slash malicious compliance episode 150. Subscribe for edit videos daily. Be rude while asking me to pay you? Okay, I'll pay you. This is my favorite of my mom's stories. When my mom had roommates, the bank messed up and lost $100. However, they required my mom's roommate, we'll call her Susan. Susan, not having a high-paying job, had to pay it in increments. That being said, the bank wanted money right away, so they had a representative call her. All I know about what was said is that it was very rude. After that encounter, and a couple others, Susan asked my mom's other roommate, we'll call her Amanda, and asked if she could borrow some money. Amanda agreed. Being a college student, my mom had infinite checks, and in order for a check to actually be processed, they have to do paperwork. You can see where this is going. My mom and her roommates made a day of writing checks with different amounts on them. Susan had over $50 left, and only 2 checks were over $1. They put each check in a separate envelope, and all of those envelopes in one large envelope. A few days later, the representative called. Why would you do this to me? You shouldn't have been so rude. Thank you. Next. Thanks for the free food, lady. Not sure if this story fits as sub, but it just happened and I want to share it somewhere. I lost my job due to pretty annoying circumstances we all are aware of, and I've been struggling since it started. Eating less and less every day to make food last. I happened to find my old bike and decided that I could maybe start working doing delivery services. Bussiness was slow at first, but my contact managed to land on some nice people that thought they could help me out, and I don't charge a lot. Just the exact amount of money I need to buy whatever they want plus the delivery fee, which is basically nothing in my country. Normally I charge the delivery fee after I've delivered the food. Today a new lady called me asking if could buy her groceries, like 2 weeks worth of groceries for a family of 4. This is a lot of money. At first she refused me to pay me the amount for the groceries, but after I explained her that my only income was going to be the delivery fee, and her calling me a untrustable bitch a few times, she finally figured out how my system works and how I will not be able to steal from her. She agreed. In other circumstances I wouldn't have argued and just let her go the moment she became rude, but I need the money, so off I went to buy the things. My bike doesn't have a place for me to put a basket or something, so I have to carry all of my deliveries in a backpack. It normally isn't a problem, but today I had to carry around maybe 50 kilograms, maybe more, not sure. It was heavy AF worth of food in my backpack and in the bike's handles for 2 hours while biking around the city. When I finally make it to this lady's house, which was not in an easy route, I took some minutes to just lay down on the sidewalk in front of the building and texted the lady. When she came down, she expected me to carry her stuff up to her apartment too. I said sorry, I was too tired, and it was too much weight. Also, unless they really need me to help, I do not carry the stuff up to their apartments. It makes me uncomfortable, especially if they have a family that can help. But I was unable to answer her fully cause I was still trying to catch my breath. If you can't deal with it then don't work as a delivery worker. Ugh, whatever. I'll call my husband. Is it going to be 5? She said. I need to sort that out with you. I normally charge 5, but due to this delivery being particularly hard for me, is 7 okay for you? This was a 2-hour trip biking with around 50 kilograms. No, I am not paying you that. You charge my friends 5. Yes, I charged them 5 because they asked for less stuff and the trip was shorter. It was easier. In reality I should have charged double for this, but I think 7 is a good com. And as I was talking, I sneezed. Oh no. I'm an allergic person. I am supposedly allergic to dust, but honestly my allergies trigger with everything. Today was a cold morning so I already had a runny nose, so the mask wasn't helping a lot with keeping stuff out of my nose. What? You have the V? I should have known since you go around with that bike. Now you've contaminated my food and want to overcharge me? Oh no you little bitch, I am calling the cops on you. Give me my money back. No. Wait. I'm just allergic too. I am probably infected too. Now you should have told Emmy and now you are going to bring IT into my home. What have you done? She was also wearing a mask, and had a bottle of hand sanitizer which she was now rubbing frantically in her hands while still rambling about how I was a horrible person and a bitch, and a scammer, and a thief, and a threat to her and her children. The insults were growing more and more. She even demanded for me to go to my house, disinfect her food and then deliver it back cause it's the least I could do. My house is an hour away. Ma'am, I can't do that. I assure you it's fine. I've been isolated the full 4 months. I've only been working on this for around 2 weeks and that is enough time to get it. You are going to leave my children without a mother, oh god. I tried to argue for some more minutes but it got extremely ridiculous. I couldn't give her back the money of her groceries. I couldn't disinfect them either. Too broke to buy my own hand sanitizer or mayo. She wouldn't take the food nor pay me the delivery fee, and I wasn't going to leave without giving her the food and without being paid. But she wasn't even arguing or finding a solution. She just wanted me to take this V away from her and her house. Damn. She screamed so much other neighbors started to come down and she wouldn't even let me explain and accused me of coming to infect them all. Her husband even came down and ended up threatening me with the police too. I asked them if they wanted the food or not, at this point being fed up with the whole situation, and they said they didn't want anything from me and to just leave. So, now I'm home with a backpack full of 2 weeks worth of food for 4 people. It's too much for me but I'll probably gift half of it to my boyfriend who also needs it. I am sad all of this happened, and I feel like I stole from that people, but in the moment it was so ridiculous. I tried to give them the food many times. Hell, at one point I just didn't care about being paid even though I needed it, but they were just so rude to me. I wish I could tell you all of the insults they threw at me, but I am unable to translate them. I still got more food than what I could have bought with the delivery fee, so I guess it was worth it. Thank you. Next. Be careful what you wish for. Never thought I'd post another story on here, lol. Anyway, here's some background notes. Mobile. I usually work out / practice soccer in a sports bra and shorts. It's usually when I'm in my house or backyard and sometimes when I go on runs. I'm not super well endowed up top. 32C. But there's still a decent amount but I am pretty well endowed in the bottom. LOL. I live in Pennsylvania. I'm a very shy and timid person so my dialogue did not come out as smoothly as it looks but I find writing how I sounded annoying LOL anyway. For some reason lots of my neighbors are moving to one of the Carolinas, north or south, and just so happens my next door neighbor is as well. Now this man has always rubbed me the wrong way. He's old and he used to watch me and my friends swim in my pool from his balcony. Anyway, I was in my usual workout attire practicing soccer in my backyard with my headphones in. He had approximately 5 people over helping him move, including one older woman who we'll lovingly call Susan. I've never met this woman before and it took me a few minutes to notice her standing at the fence in between our yards waving me down. I stop my music and walk over to her. Susan, you need to change. Me, what? Susan, you can't wear a bra outside, that's indecent. Me, but I'm in my own backyard minding my own business. I'm not doing anything. My bra covers everything and I isn't sheer or lace. Susan, that's not appropriate, go change. Everything's hanging out. Now I've always hated the notion that somehow sports bras are different from bikinis and I was beyond excited to finally get a chance to dish out some compliance. Me, sorry, of course I'll change. I go inside and get a bathing suit from my room. Now this suit is a red 2-piece. The top only has 2 triangles of cloth that do cover my boobs and the rest is the usual string used to keep it on, and the bottom are a really cheeky pair. I wore this to the beach when New Jersey was open and got no flack for it and even saw people wearing less so I knew it was no big deal. I put my cleats on and headed back outside and started practicing. She walked back over about to blow a fuse. Susan, what are you wearing? Me, a bathing suit. It's not inappropriate. I wore it to the beach and I didn't get yelled at. Actually people wore less. Susan ended up giving up and letting me, and I changed back into my sports bra and shorts and finished my workout. One day I'll give you guys a more exciting one when it happens. Thank you. Next. Man refuses offer to cut bill 50%, ends up in debt and wrecks credit score. So I work in a call center for a UK mobile phone company. Got a call one day of a guy absolutely furious about the cost of his bill. I can see this is only his first actual bill and it's close to £800 when the guy only has a £60 a month tariff. Check the bill and see right away the guy has made hours of phone calls to Pakistan. Advise him of this and he freaks out even more, saying he bought the unlimited plan so can call as much as he wants. Now, the company does not even hide this in the small print. In big bold letters on any purchase on the website it will say unlimited standard UK minutes, and then directly beneath it clarifies that premium rate and international numbers are not included. I emailed him a screenshot of the exact deal he picked with all this info displayed, but he tried to claim it didn't say that when he accepted it. Bullshit, of course. We go around in circles for about 30 minutes until I eventually get sick of him and semi-cave and go ask my manager, can we get a reduction on the bill? She's more generous than I thought and agrees to let me cut the bill in half. But if he rejects this, then we will deadlock the account. This basically means that any offer we make is taken off the table and the dispute goes to an independent ombudsman who makes a call as to who is in the wrong. So I go back to the guy, tell him we will cut the bill in half. He flatly rejects it and demands we waive the bill entirely, including his normal £60 tariff for the distress we caused him. I tell him this won't be happening, and if he won't accept 50% then the account has to go to deadlock and the ombudsman will make a decision. He gets practically giddy when I mention this, like he somehow now has us bang to rights, and then demands yes, send this case to the ombudsman. I say fine, and I send off the case. I'm now the caseworker for this dispute, so anytime he calls back he will get put through to me. Fun times. Now what the guy clearly didn't know is that in deadlock situations, the ombudsman comes down on the side of the phone network 95% of the time. Not because of any corruption or bias, simply because if a customer has generally been wronged, the company will go out of its way to compensate them before it gets that far so they can avoid bad publicity. It tends to be the insane customers who end up deadlocked. I guess the guy had done some research after he got off the call to me and realized this, so he called in again the next day. He's still kinda standoffish at first and asked if he could take the offer now. Advised him as per the terms of deadlock the earlier offer was withdrawn and the decision was entirely with the ombudsman now. He gets mad again but realizes this gets him nowhere, so switches to being super nice. Again, this makes no difference. Even if I wanted to, the account is deadlocked so nothing can be done. He hangs up in a rage. Few weeks later, as expected, the ombudsman finds in the company's favor and the customer is now liable to pay every penny of that bill. He calls back to me yet again. He is very arrogant and basically tells me that he won't pay us a penny and we can take him to full court if we want. Now we get thousands of people every year that stops paying their bill. We don't bother prosecuting them as it's not worth the effort. Instead, what will happen is your account will get cancelled, the phone will be blacklisted so it is useless, and the entire cost you would have paid over 2 years gets charged to you at once and sent to a debt collector. This will really fuck up your credit score for years to come. I explained all this, but the customer was still being a cocky prick and said he didn't care and hung up. Thank fuck, I thought. Won't have to listen to this ballbag ever again at least. That was until around 2 months later he calls back again. He's surprisingly nice right out of the gate and I soon find out why. After he refused to pay the initial bill, his contract was cancelled, and between the remainder of his contract cost and the £800 he refused to pay initially, he was now around £2,000 in debt. Turns out when we blacklisted the phone he got from us, he tried just about every other UK network to get a new contract but got rejected on the credit checks. He had also the day before the call tried to get finance for a new car and was turned down because of what he owed us. He was stupid enough to think paying the initial $800 now would be enough for us to reconnect his line and clean his credit file. I advised him there was no chance of this and he still owed the full $2,000. If he paid the full $2,000 it would help improve his credit, but the face he went into debt with us in the first place would remain on his credit file. TLDR, guy runs up huge phone bill for foreign calls. Refused offer to cover half the costs, now has fucked you owe his credit for years to come. Thank you. Next. How an act of malicious compliance saved my life. A year and a half ago I was working a restaurant job that was slowly killing me. There's a lot to set up, so bear with me. I am skipping over a lot. I realize now we should have gotten OSHA involved, but I was an idiot and let all this go on for too long. This is not as soft as the last one and has no moment of victory. Setup. Since the previous story about this restaurant, a lot had changed. Not long after that story, I was promoted to management but never fully trained. I had gotten Lucy fired for theft and my wife was the one who replaced her, transferred from another store. This broke a lot of company policies, and also probably the law, but the company was short on managers. A new GM came in and Lazy Daisy got the demotion she deserved and would be forced to resign. Before she left, she attempted to get revenge on us, blaming us for what happened, but it failed. Another manager, who is so insignificant I forgot his name, quit and was replaced by an old friend who my wife and I trusted and treated almost like family. At first things started to finally be looking up in that terrible restaurant. Then we quickly realized that the new general manager was a full-scale LVL-10 Karen. GM Karen had made me and wife priority targets in her wrath. She quickly became aggressive, vindictive, and malicious at every opportunity. She fired half the staff, trapping some of them to do so, insulting people until they snapped and fired them. She fired one cook after telling me to skip cleaning and get off the clock, and the no-neat freak night cook threw a fit, rightfully so, at the dirty line. She fired him, then forced me to work the night off the clock for not cleaning. It was supposed to be my night off. We are at this point critically understaffed. Wife and I's schedules are pushing 80 hours every week. The marriage was in free fall from our stress and the incessant berating from GM Karen. Every moment we had together was usually interrupted by a phone call demanding one of us come in. I had gone from mainly managing to going back to line cook/dish, with my only real managing time being having to come in at 8 AM to do soft opens, unlock the door for the staff, do paperwork, count safe, and help throw truck. Some days I was pushed to as many as 18-hour shifts, 8 AM to 2 AM the next day. Few days I got breaks. No food during the day besides what I could sneak, averaging 4 hours of sleep if I managed to steal a meal on my way out the door and not have to cook. If I was lucky, I got a short day or 2 days off the same week. My body began to fail, but I was that idiot too dumb to quit and willing to do almost anything that was expected of me. My wife and I's vacation finally came, and during it I suffered some kind of respiratory failure. The doctors there brought me back with a bill as large as all of our spending money for the trip, citing asthma as the likely cause without investigating. I had found it weird that my activity-based asthma had been triggered while lying in bed and had suddenly resurfaced after years of dormancy, but I paid it no mind. I should have. But this did severely anger me, and I started to finally figure I needed to get out of there. Over the following weeks, my lungs would dramatically drop in ability, but I chalked it all up to just simply asthma. After all, that's what the doctor said. On to the story. After weeks of grief for my wife and I's vacation, which included even more insane hours and odd jobs, GM Karen suddenly decided to go on a vacation of her own lasting a full week. It was the last day of the pay period and my clock out was in the upper 80s the previous week and upper 90s that week. I was hollow-eyed and barely able to breathe. I still thought it was just my asthma and lack of sleep. On her way out the door, she whipped several cooks into a tizzy and attempted to get them all fired, and then handed me a massive list of chores to do while she was gone. While all of the stuff should have long been done, years of neglect and the months of severe understaffing made all these duties simply impossible to accomplish. Every new hire had been chased off by her and making up for it with ever-increasing overtime. A lot of progress had been made, but there was still months more to do to fix the neglect from the reign of Lazy Daisy. I told her flatly that this list was impossible to do in a week, maybe not even a month. Then she uttered the words I had not known I was waiting for. She angrily screamed, "If this isn't done, you and wife don't even bother ever coming back on the day I get back. Do it or else." Before I could even say anything, she rushed out the door to go on her vacation, and I looked down in defeat. The whole of the staff knew I was at a breaking point, and the faces they had been making told me I was not going to survive doing this. I would spend a lot of the week trying my best, but my body was giving up. One day, I slept in the office as it was too late to bother driving home. By the last day of pushing ourselves and the staff to the breaking point, we had accomplished about 1/5 of her list and blew our labor far beyond what corporate allowed. Everyone had significant overtime. As the last day came to a close and I finished the floors around the dish pit, me and wife looked at the clock. 3 AM. The meeting and the moment she returned. 6 AM. We were both scheduled doubles the next day. 6 AM close thanks to the meeting. Karen's words were stewing in my head, and if it was not for that sentence, I probably would have slept in the office that night or kept working to finish the list. We decided, you know what, screw this place. Karen said we shouldn't come back if the list wasn't completed, and well, it wasn't. So we complied. We left our keys, stole an industrial-size box of chicken nuggets, and walked out the door. We never came back just like she said we should. The time clock read about 105 hours. The fallout. The rest of the story is told to us by second hand. Mainly the family friend and some co-workers at first, but after they quit, we got updates from a relative of the new manager that I happened to be working with. Small world. According to them, after we had left, staff morale had plummeted. The last dishwasher, I was the second to last after the other two were fired, would be brought to his mental breaking point and stormed out the door a few days later. People began to quit left and right. The staff apparently looked up to me and wife since we had stuck through everything with them shoulder to shoulder and in the trenches, and like other managers like Lazy Daisy and Karen, the state of the store decayed as the downward spiral continued and store revenue went through the floor. We were the straw that broke the camel's back. Last I heard, Karen had an empty store, few employees, and nobody to shout at. And that was before 2020 began to dawn. I'm sure that store hasn't survived this long. My health was still declining but had dramatically slowed. Some days, it even felt like it had improved. I thought this was just where my body was going to be and that asthma was what was keeping me down. 2 months after quitting, I collapsed at my new job. My lungs were not working. It was an asthma attack on a level I had not felt since the vacation. I was brought to the hospital by ambulance and discharged in short order as I recovered. Another massive bill and still lost as to why. A week later I had fallen ill and took the day off. I went to my doctor to get a doctor's note when suddenly they wheeled me into intensive care. The nurse said I was as white as a sheet. My blood oxygen level was so low I should have passed out on the drive. They discovered I had a minor nasal infection that had spread through my entire respiratory system and beyond, heavily entrenched in the lungs. The doctor estimated that this level of infection of that strain would require a number of months. He estimated 7-8 of progression and a severely weak immune system. When informed of my previous job, he said that the lack of sleep and constant work was stressing my body to the point where my immune system could not fight off the infection. Despite being out of that environment, the war on the infection was preventing the body from healing. He said I shouldn't have made it, and if I had not quit, he has little doubt I would not have made it. To this day, a year and a half later, my lungs are still weak but the infection is gone. They may never heal but I am still around. I have, due to recent circumstances, finally quit restaurants entirely. But that was how some malicious compliance and a walk out the door probably saved my life. Thank you. Next. Small-minded bureaucrat wants me to know the law. TL. Dr. A small-minded bureaucrat demands my birth certificate, only to discover it's written in a language she doesn't know. When I first graduated from college, I moved to a nearby state for a new job. I'm in the US. Because I am a civic-minded person, and because a presidential election was coming up, I wanted to register to vote in my new state. In those days, before internet, you had to go the city hall of the town/city in which you resided and fill out the paperwork at the office of the registrar of voters. I only needed my driver's license and /your social security card to do so. The election came and went, and I voted, so all was fine. Or so I thought. About 2 weeks after the national presidential election, I received a phone call. It was the registrar of voters from the city in which I lived. She had apparently finally gotten around to actually reading my voter registration and now had decided that she needed more information. She informed me that I was not eligible to vote, as I had been born in another country. I explained to her that, while I was indeed born in another country, I was born to 2 American parents, and thus, by birth, was an American citizen. She paused, then told me I had to bring in my naturalization papers to show her. I explained to her that I have no naturalization papers because I have never been naturalized. I'm an American citizen at birth. Remember that the registrar of voters is supposedly a person whose job it is to know the rules about voter eligibility. She insisted that I needed naturalization papers. I reminded her that children born to an American parent Only one is actually needed to be a citizen, are automatically American citizens. Moreover, while some countries of one's birth might provide dual citizenship, the country of my birth, Switzerland, does not. So we went back and forth for a while. She doubled down and kept insisting I needed naturalization papers while I tried to explain US citizenship laws. I also pointed out to her that if she believed voter fraud had occurred, it was too late anyway, as I had already voted. Finally she said I had to bring in those papers or my birth certificate within 2 weeks or I'd be expunged from the voter rolls. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. When an American baby is born abroad, his/her parents are supposed to report the birth at the nearest US embassy or consulate so that a consular report of birth abroad, CRBA, can be issued as an official record of the child's claim to U.S. citizenship or nationality. I have one of those. It's written in English. But the registrar of voters didn't ask for my CRBA. Nope. She demanded my birth certificate. So that's what I brought into her. The beautiful birth certificate written entirely in French, which I was pretty sure she could not read. I gave it to her, just as she had asked. As I did, I asked her if she knew French and, no surprise, she did not. And then I watched her try to read it. She studied that piece of paper for about 2 minutes and knowing that I had complied with her ridiculous request, finally just stammered out okay, this is fine. It's not much, but I enjoyed her reaction. She had no way of knowing what it was that I presented to her, but I gave her exactly what she demanded. In retrospect, who knows what I could have shown to her? But that's what happens when bureaucrats get a little taste of power, more than their small-minded brains can handle. Thank you. Next. In-kind donations of garbage. I volunteered for a political campaign when I was in college. It's a terrible, unpaid job with long hours and nothing but miserable people. I did it because it was a graduation requirement. I worked in the compliance department, which consisted primarily of checking in campaign donations and ensuring that the donor was legally permitted to donate. On occasion, we would receive an envelope returned to us by some enraged individual expressing his or her disapproval of our candidate. Usually these letters just consisted of torn up donor forms, typically covered with badly scrawled and terribly misspelled threats and expletives. But every now and then, someone would weigh down the prepaid return envelope, so that it would cost the campaign more money to receive their return. Usually, it meant that the respondent stuffed the envelopes with paper clips or similar low-value metallic items. These tactics usually added somewhere in the neighborhood of $0.0002, so not exactly effective, but it was still very mildly annoying. By law, all donations, in kind or otherwise, must be logged and reported. This means that we have to report your donation even if you've donated something non-monetized. This, of course, includes donations of office supplies. So I, being the upstanding citizen I am, complied with reporting standards. If I received an envelope weighed down with some variety of low-value item, i.e., paperclips, I'd estimate the number of paperclips received, looked up their value on Staples or other office supply websites, and then checked in the customers in-kind donation. Our campaign fastidiously sent thank you letters to all donors, and reported all donations to the supervisor of elections. Instead of costing the campaign money as intended, these individuals instead received a thank you note for their donations, and their kindness was memorialized in public records. Edit. On mobile, leaving any spelling and grammar as is.